not live from the Verso Studios in the fabulous new Westport Library. It's Oh Brother, Not Another Podcast with me, Trace Burroughs.
And Miggs Burroughs, is it safe?
Yeah, come on in. Yep.
Okay. Stand back.
Okay.
I'm coming.
That's too close.
Okay.
So we're all in this situation. It is, what is it, March something?
I'm not quite sure. 27th.
27th, and, the world is all locked down, and the library shut down, the Playhouse is shut down, everything's shut down. Westport's vacant. So we're doing this podcast from our bunker just to keep in touch and keep current. And, it's open. Both.
Yeah.
Any suggestions you want to make? I thought just maybe spend a minute or two on how we're dealing with what's going on for a minute or two.
Sure.
And then I thought it'd be a cool idea to just sort of reminisce about Westport of old.
Yeah.
To resurrect, what used to be.
Have you seen those photos on that Facebook page? The old Westport photos. There's a couple of people that have like amazing, it shows Post Road, Main Street and the Post Road at Taylor Place, like where there's trolley cars and this kind of thing.
No, I haven't seen that. I mean, I have over time seen different photos, but no, I haven't seen the recent
And
thing.
old Campo Beach before, going to changes going way early, where they had a lifeguard house and they tore that down, and they had, the place where you go and there's like a little roof. It's been there for a long time.
Yeah,
you built picnic tables. There used to be a 2-story building, so I guess they took the top off of it and put it down.
Yeah, there's a lot of changes, and now it's eerie. You go down, it's just like out of a sci-fi movie. Main Street's vacant, and people have taken pictures of the Post Road, and you can't see a car for like going up, for a mile.
Finally.
Yeah, finally. I can get that damn parking space in front of Ann Taylor's that I've always been. But what do you, just go briefly, what do you...
Well, my life hasn't really changed radically. I mean, it's still early that, it's been only like maybe 2 or 3 weeks they've closed the clubs. I go out to listen to music on weekends, so I can't do that. But I'm indoors a lot, working on creative projects. So, it's more about the anxiety of going out to buy food and people that aren't like keeping their distance. And there's a lot of, areas that they're not. They say that you think you're being protected. Like if you go to a checkout counter, you're really just 2 feet away from the checkout girl, And so it's basically just the anxiety of having to go out and buy food.
Yeah, I think artists, it's a generalization, have it easier because it's a solitary kind of thing, and at least for me, and I know we're used to working alone and being alone, so it's like. There's really nothing new about it except there's certain activities we can't do anymore. Activities, clubs, movies, things. Yeah. But I did want to mention we're on iTunes now. This was it shouldn't have been a long process, but anyway, so our podcast, Oh Brother, Not Another Podcast, is now available on iTunes. If anybody wants to just search, go to iTunes and under their podcast category, you can search for us. And there's, I think, 8 or 9 episodes up now. And this will be the 10th, so that's kind of cool. So we're available globally. But what else did what's your earliest memory of Westport?
I guess just going to Campo Beach when I think back then you could walk, so I was 8 or 9, maybe I walked to the beach. It was about 1.5 miles before people were afraid to let their 8-year-olds walk the streets alone.
We're just pushed out of the house. Right?
So, going to Campo Beach, buying a hamburger, laying in the sun, looking at the high school girls.
The other thing that was weird about that time was there was no really that much interest in sun prevention, and you just usually came home with a sunburn, and it would just, my back would be just bright red, beet red, and they just put calamine lotion on it or something, right? Or Noxema or something.
Yeah, you wouldn't have a good judgment, so you think you wouldn't know till you got home and like all of a sudden you can't touch anything.
Yeah, beach school. I remember being dropped off at beach school, and you're just out all day. Like there was no thing of covering up and wearing sunscreen or.
I don't. This is a little off, but I did go to beach school too.
Yeah.
We had to make little leather belts and stuff.
Oh yeah.
So these two girls, I guess they were either ninth graders or sophomores in high school, ran this thing, and they brought all the kids at the end of the day after we made our little things into a room, and they asked us to take all our clothes off.
What?
Yeah, and just go. And I said, I don't want to do that. And they say, you can't have some special event afterwards. Like you can't. You've got to go in a room. So they sat in a room and was like looking at a bunch of young children all naked interacting, but I wouldn't go in. So I went back and told Mom, and I said, they want us to, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go in that room. And she says, if you don't feel comfortable with it, you don't have to do it. And I also said, I think I don't want to go back there.
Wow.
Isn't that
what do you
weird?
think what do you think the purpose was? Or
I
was
don't
it
know.
Just
To see how, like a science experiment, to see how naked 8-year-olds would interact. I don't know. But today would be like a major event. It'd probably be a national news.
Oh my God.
But,
Well, Mom, this classic story that she told, and it was only after Dad died, and I probably told you, or she told you anyway, or maybe that. And this had to do with the swinging. We used to ask her, I think, about the keys. Westport was known for the keys,
the
swinging and key. What are the key parties?
you should explain where.
Yeah.
Some people might know, where you'd come to a party and everyone would put their keys in a giant bowl,
Right?
And then at the end, you would just blindly grab keys and whoever they were. So if you'd end up with like a random woman or vice versa, and then you're supposed to go home with them.
Yeah, right. Whosever car it was, you'd go home with that partner,
And I guess supposed to have sex with them.
Yeah, and I remember Mom always claimed. I don't think we ever talked to Dad about it, but Mom always claimed that as soon as the bowl came out, they left. She claimed they never, and they left when people went skinny dipping. And that was her story.
That was her story.
They always bailed out before the fun started. But there's one story was they were having a barbecue at the beach with a lot of their friends and couples, and Mom, they tend to drink a lot in those days anyway, and so Mom didn't take much, I think, she didn't get crazy, she just got sick or headachy or nauseous, and so she wandered looking for her car, Dad's car, but she found another car that was open, and she opened the back, and she crawled in. It was a station wagon, and she crawled into the back of the station wagon just to curl up and sleep it off, or just, so. And the next thing she knows, she hears the car starting. Do you remember that? Did you ever tell you this?
Only from what you told me.
So the car starts and moves, and she's petrified. She has no idea what's going on, and she kind of peeks and she sees who it is, friends of hers, but it's a husband. It's a husband and wife from different couples, so they're obviously. And she's back there. It's like a movie. So she's, and they end up going to some house, one of their other houses, and Mom stays in the car. And 20 minutes later, they come out of the house and they drive back to the beach like nothing happened. And Mom stayed in the car until they got out, and she waited like 5 minutes, and then she snuck out of the car. And so she knew this secret about these people from other couples that had their little fun.
Yeah.
But Westport, you probably had more of a. I mean, there was Bill's Smoke Shop.
Right. Yeah.
The Hangs. I mean, there was
Thompson's drugstore, which is right where Tiffany's is.
Yeah.
So when I was in junior high, the thing to do when I was 7th and 8th grade was we're all going to meet at Thompson's drugstore, and basically they served hamburgers and had little booths. And,
right.
And kids would just hang out there.
And did they sell? I seem to remember Bill. There was always a place that did something secret, or like Bill's Smoke Shop. I think sold fireworks or somebody or the.
When I was about 8th grade, so a kid had fireworks, cherry bombs, and all this. And I said, "Where do you get those?" And he turned me on to his secret, connection. And there was a guy right on Railroad Price. Right across the road station. He was a butcher, but you had to go in there and say, like, Chris sent me. I swear. And he would go behind, and then, what do you want? I want, 50, cherry bombs and a belt of fireworks. And he would just put it in a bag, and you hand him the money.
Yeah, I love that kind of our little version of the underworld.
Yeah.
Westport underworld.
which they just, I don't know, again on that one site, Old Westport, whatever it's called, about the Le Crepe. And Barry Troop, and
that's a fantastic.
And upstairs, the girls, they posted a picture of it, and I mean, it's this real, sexy drawing of a woman, and they say, and they was very vague with the wording about being a waitress, but anyhow, they had prostitutes upstairs, and then Barry Troop sold drugs from there. This is all based. This is not, on a New Yorker magazine article, and he supposedly laundered money for the mafia. So this article came out, 35 years ago or whatever.
But they're located, Le Crepe were across from Harding Funeral Home on that corner
That's
of
right,
Myrtle Avenue on the Post Road. Now it's a real estate building.
That's right, yeah.
But that was Le Crepe. I remember Le Crepe. And you lived up there,
Yeah,
right?
I lived up there.
Yeah.
Just when Barry was renovating it. I think it cost me $15 a week to live there. That's how cheap things were back in the old days.
And did the hookers live up there too?
No, not until they made it Le Crepe. And he poured so much money in that, like overkill. Like he wanted, weird lighting fixtures and this. I remember I kept on hearing about the money, to transform it into his vision of some kind of French Le Crepe place.
Turned into Le Crepe.
Le Crepe, yeah.
Yeah, that was a great Westport thing. And the other, it wasn't so public, but your connection with the Waynes. David Wayne was I guess you'd say a very, a B-movie actor, maybe. I mean, I think he has leads in some movies. He played the Mad Hatter in
the Batman series.
TV.
He was the lead Ellery Queen television series.
That's right.
He was in another show called Doctors. So he was in a bunch of TV series and did characters. He's a character actor. His heyday was really on Broadway. Finian's Rainbow was his height. Like when he did that, it was like he was a national celebrity. And then he did a Tea House of the August Moon and a bunch of other plays. And someone asked me in the 8th grade or 7th grade, actually, I think it was. I was just starting taking drum lessons. I couldn't play, and he says, "Well, I know a band. They need a drummer." I said, "I can't play." He says, "It doesn't matter." So it was Timmy Wayne. And they had a really beautiful house up on East Meadow Lane. And, it was really interesting because Mr. Wayne was always going off to shoots, and he was very temperamental, come down in his bathrobe and yell at us and to shut up and stuff. But they're very lenient, so they let us, drink over there, like just when I was 12 or 13, get drunk. And Mrs. Wayne would never tell our parents, like,
right.
It happened all the time. Mr. Wayne smoked pot back then. We'd sit down on the floor in the living room, and he'd tell us these great Hollywood stories that he went to some party and he looked up Esther Williams' dress and he did, this happened and all this kind of stuff. And
his wife, Janie, wasn't it?
Janie who was very sweet.
But she was an alcoholic.
Alcoholic,
right?
yeah. And one time, one of his best friends was Larry Hagman from Dallas and I Dream of Jeannie. And he used to come to the house naked. he was a super, Mr. Natural
nudist,
guy.
like a nudist,
and he was into pots. He'd have a big, shopping bag full of pot and be naked and go over there and be Mr. Free person.
God.
Yeah. And other...
And he had twins. You were in touch with his. I don't know if I dated. A few times you invited me over, and to your band rehearsals.
Yeah.
So I remember, and I met Melissa and Susan Wayne, the twin sisters.
Right. I've kept in touch with Melinda, just still 3 months ago, because Susan died.
Oh, okay.
So, but when I went to California back in my late 20s, Melinda was very nice and said, "Well, you can stay here until you get settled." And so, one crazy thing that happened was Susan took me to some club, and I was she was paying for the drinks. They had they had a lot of money. So I was drinking Remy Martins, which I never had before, and just consuming one after another. And then we went to leave. I left the parking lot, and my tires of the car went over these spikes, which I didn't realize. They used to have those in California back then, but I think they abolished them. And the car went right into a movie theater through the front doors. Yeah,
what?
Yeah,
I
through the
never
front.
heard this.
Yes, you never heard this one?
No.
Yeah, so we crashed through the doors. I mean, we can go up to the popcorn stand, but it was like we crashed through the doors and the glass poured down, and people gather, and everyone comes out, and all of a sudden, I felt like I was sober. Obviously, I wasn't, but your adrenaline. So So the police come. They have me do all those things, like walk a straight line, do this, do that. I could do it all perfectly. And then the policeman gets right in front of my face, I swear, 5 inches, and says, breathe on my face. And I had all this brandy, and I breathe on his face, and he says, I don't smell anything.
Whoa.
So I think Mr. Wayne, he was so pissed off. He comes down because the car's got 2 flat tires or whatever. And he says, fix the flat tire. And I was in shock. And I had fixed a lot of, I have fixed a lot of flat tires. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what the next thing. So some guy on the street, because Californians are really nice, some guy says, I'll change your tires for you. So he fixes the tires. Then Mr. Wayne says, follow me home with Susan's car or whatever. And I said, I can't drive. I'm too... and it was so embarrassing to have to admit that, And then he drove me home and her home, and
no arrests or anything.
No arrests, no nothing. I got out of that, and the only thing was that about 2 days before, when I'd come to California, it was a week before, whatever. The Wayne said, you're one of the family now, and all this. After that, it wouldn't have anything to do with me. And their car insurance went up $10,000. And Melinda told me this, and I felt like, oh my God, I have no money, I'm just. And she says, don't worry about it. My mother's going to pay for it.
Oh, no, she was sort of the fixer.
Yeah, the fixer. Yeah.
But you got arrested with Timmy, though, didn't you? In a smoking pot in a tree or something?
When I was 21 or 20, down at Cranberry Park in Norwalk. There's a big, I don't know what kind of tree it is. It's this huge. So Timmy says, let's climb up. He always wanted to do odd things. So he climbed up this tree, and we smoked, had a joint, just one joint. And I think there was someone had a pipe. The cops came. They searched us. They put their hands through our hair, thinking we were hiding heroin there. And we all got arrested, and there was a court case. It was in the news because of Mr. Wayne. It was on the radio and all over the place. And I think our parents had to hire a lawyer or something. And then they dropped the charges. I didn't have anything on me. I was just with someone who had some pot. And it was a dirty pipe. So that's all we had is 1 joint's worth of pot and a dirty pipe. Yeah. And back then, it was common. A lot of people thought that pot was this like heroin.
Scandalous, yeah.
Like we were like hardcore.
Because I remember at the dinner table, I think this is a true memory of, and it was while you were going through this, and it was the big shame on the family. And I think they asked me, and I was in college at the time, I think. I don't know, but anyway, they kind of blurted out like, "Well, I know Miggs has never smoked pot," or they did some kind of thing, and I go, "Yes, they have," and they were like. I just remember their eyes rolling behind their heads.
Well, so I started smoking pot early. Timmy's sisters turned us on. So I was starting 7th or 8th grade. I didn't even know what pot, when they said a pipe, I thought they meant a real pipe, like a plumber's pipe. Yeah. I had no idea what they were talking about. But so we smoked every time my parents were out, and they were out quite often. I'd be smoking pot with my friends in there. So one day, Ricky comes over, and we're smoking pot, and now Mom and Dad come home. They smell it, and I was all ready to lie to them like I always had previously. Like, what are you talking about? and they said, "Have you been smoking pot?" And I just said yes. And I remember Mom and Dad were sitting across from each other near the fireplace, and Dad was holding his head like it's the most horrifying thing. And Mom says, like, "Look at your dad. He never thought you would ever smoke pot."
God. And the sad end, of course, with Timmy is that he sort of vanished, right? In the wilderness in Alaska.
He went up to Yellowknife Lake in Northwest Territory in Canada, and all they found was a tipped-over canoe. And because it was a glacier lake, if you drowned, your body would go to the bottom. And the Waynes went up there to ask. It was very suspicious circumstances. And, so they never found his body, basically.
Yeah. And Malcolm Best, right?
Malcolm was with them. And Timmy wanted me to go with him on that trip. But I knew they were going to, drop acid a lot, and I didn't drop acid when I was in that time. So,
well, my brush with celebrity here was Terry Knight. I get this phone. I had done this logo for a security systems thing called WatchGuard, and it was just local. But anyway, so I get this phone call out of the blue. in the 70s, I think. Anyway, and it's this guy named Terry Knight, and he goes, I have a house in the Bahamas, and my I have a sticker on my window with a logo, WatchGuard sticker. Somebody did my security system, and they said, you did the logo, and I'd like you to do some work for me. And I go, yeah, okay. And then I find out Terry Knight is the manager of Grand Funk Railroad, and he lives on Charcoal Hill Road at the top in this big, it's not a mansion, but it was
which was one of the biggest bands in the country back in the
right.
early 70s.
They outsold the Beatles at Shea Stadium. I mean, they were just huge, at the time. And so he lived on top of Charcoal Hill Road, and he had this beautiful little blonde wife named Pia, who was a stewardess he met on a plane. But Terry was doing anyway. So I would go over there with I had a partner at the time, and he would have us do these brochures for him. He owned a Learjet, and we did a promotional brochure for the Learjet. And I went up in the jet and took pictures, and I was like, this is crazy. But then he started getting really bizarre. Like he'd say, "Oh, it's urgent. You have to come over here right away." And I'd come over. I mean, I just wanted to please him because he was such a good client, and it was just fun being in his house. And he'd say, "See this comma? You put this comma, after this word in the paragraph. Could you move it over like a millimeter of it?" Like, what? I mean, I had I didn't know anything about coke or whatever drugs he was doing. So this was just insanity to me, and I thought, well, this is just a very fussy client, and I have to please him. So I would, in those days, it was not a computer; it was an X-Acto blade
with a little piece of wax.
And I would be slicing like infinitesimal little pieces of paper between the comma and the back and forth, and he's obsessing about. And somebody finally clued me in that this guy is a cokehead, and he's whacked, and that's all he's obsessing on. He's one day he called. I was married at the time, and he called up and said, "Okay, I'm leaving for the Bahamas in a half an hour. Meet me at the airport, you and your wife." And I go, I can't. I have work. I can't. I mean, I sort of half regret it, but because who knows? But not really. He had an island in the Bahamas that he shared with Peter Frampton at the time, and he used to take friends there. So that was a missed opportunity, or maybe a missed disaster.
Yeah.
And then you told me, I think you called me up once. You saw him on TV, on the Behind the Music. Didn't you call me up and say on VH1 Behind the Music?
Well, he had a band. I mean, before he became a manager, what was the name of that band? He was
Terry Knight and the Pack,
and they had a hit. But I don't know.
No, I think. Well, it could be a false memory, but somebody called me up and said, "Turn on VH1 Behind," and I turned it on, and there's an interview with Terry Knight. And he was a handsome guy. He had a kind of a big nose made for coke because he had huge nostrils and a big nose, but he was very handsome.
Yeah.
And he had, and that was he was fit, and he must have he must have weighed 300 pounds. I mean, he was just this like behemoth.
And he died. He was stabbed to death.
So the story goes, ultimately his daughter was living with him. And she was in an abusive relationship with a boyfriend. Anyway, he comes home and finds the boyfriend beating up his daughter, and he gets in the middle, tries to break it up, and the boyfriend stabs Terry Knight to death.
Crazy.
Well, the other thing rewind is that at one point, so he bought a few of. I was doing these pop art paintings at the time, and he bought a few of them, and I get this note on my door. I lived in this little tenement-like thing down in Westport, and it's from Terry Knight saying, "Can I borrow $100 or sell you your painting back?"
Oh, weird.
So I'm going, what? And so I call. I knew a friend of his, this woman that knew him locally, and she said, "Oh, don't you know? He's like, he burned through all his money with drugs. He sold his planes, his limousine company." He's like, he has no money. He's like, he's desperate. He's just, don't give him the money because he'll just buy drugs with it. So the downfall of this guy from being, he once told me the loneliest experience in his life was he went out, he introduced Grand Funk at Shea Stadium, and he walked out onto the stage, and there's 80,000 people or whatever at Shea Stadium on their feet, cheering, chanting, Grand Funk, Grand Funk. And he makes this thing and introduces Grand Funk. And he goes back into his dressing room all alone with a tray of, food. And he's all alone. And here he is, 80,000 people chanting, and he made this group. He created Grand Funk, and he had no wife or girlfriend at the time, and that was the saddest time of his life, and he died in a horrible way.
You think he'd be like super, like, wow, I made, look what I've accomplished.
Yeah, I know, but I don't know if it was just too much success too soon, or the drugs thing became and then his wife divorced him eventually, little Pia. He was racing with Paul Newman for a while. When he had money, he got his way. He was on Paul Newman's racing team.
Yeah.
I mean, he just sort of, money just bought his way into any other, we have like 4 minutes left. Any other Westport highlights?
Geez.
There's a lot too.
Some of these stories are a little like, we could mention the John Fuller thing in the tape.
Oh, yeah. So we were neighbors when we lived at home, and one of our neighbors was John G. Fuller, who wrote these books usually on the paranormal kind of stuff. And one was, I don't know if it was Incident at Exeter or one. Yeah, okay. And what do you?
And so it was about one of the first documented alien abductions. This is back again, I don't know, late 60s, mid 60s, something. So he's writing this, but he comes over to our house because he lived next door, my parents' house, and he says, you got to listen to this tape. So he plays this tape of Barney and Betty Hill. Those are the two people that were abducted.
Right. Interracial couple.
Right. But that was
in those days.
That was a big deal.
60s, yeah.
So he plays this tape, and they're under hypnosis talking about being touched by the aliens, and they're screaming. I've never heard in my life.
Murder.
Screaming, so it distorted the microphone, like don't touch me, and all this. So it was very disturbing to hear that.
And we were always, exiled to our rooms. We weren't allowed to mix with company or anything. But I remember we just heard the screaming from our rooms, as I remember it, and it was the tape. And it was frightening because we didn't. It was like somebody being murdered. And they explained to us later that he had the real tapes. And his second wife, Elizabeth Fuller, which we give credit to, has written a play about it, based on that, reenacting that whole incident of the hypnosis, Barney and Betty Hill's hypnosis and the tapes. And, that was pretty scary. Yeah, our parents...
He shot a thing for Candid Camera once, too.
Oh, he did?
Because he could shoot, he's a filmmaker, a book, an author. He could do different things. I remember when Candid Camera came to Westport at the bowling alley, they did a stunt.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And he shot it. He shot for them.
So what grew? Westport had a lot of, with the Players Tavern, there wasn't time to go through them all, but there was so many groups.
The Ramones.
I saw the Ramones at the Players Tavern, the James Cotton Blues Band.
Guy from the Mamas and Papas.
Denny Doherty, I think.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
And actually went to
Charlie Karp's band played a lot.
Oh, Charlie Karp's band played a lot. And you were in, can you just rattle off the names of the bands you were in? We have time.
The Rogues, the Styx, the Bad Aussies, Circus.
You were the original Styx, not the
right.
Styx.
This is like 8 years before the famous Styx.
And you were wearing doing punk things. I don't think the word punk had even existed, but you were wearing dog collars, spiked dog collars, and weird stuff before any of that.
The funny thing is so I made this little demo record. It was like a punk song. You had it printed, on a little 45, and our band never really, took off. But I found online, it's probably still there. Yeah. People don't know who the band was. $85 for the bold one.
Really?
Yeah, this guy's selling that. I was going to email him. I said, "I'll let him have. Who cares?"
I love that song, the bold one. Yeah. That was Ricky
singing
lead on that. Yeah. Oh, that was the other thing that Terry Knight did at the time. I guess quickly, he was very nice. I went to California, maybe to visit you or something. I don't know. It was with my wife, and we went a vacation, and I told Terry I'm going to California, and he hooked me up with all these A&R people at all the major record companies, and I played the bold. I had made a little tape of your band, your guys' band. I don't know which one it was at the time, but and I played it for these A&R people, like major, anyway, it was none of it was accepted, but it was cool being in that situation.
Yeah.
But what I realized is they listen.
Whoa!
What the heck?
The ship just came.
Time's up. Well, anyway, they listen. They listen for 10 seconds and go, "Oh no, thanks for coming, but we're not interested." Anyway, time's up. Maybe we'll do another one of these, and so much more Westport stories. We just thought it'd be nice to reminisce on the nice things about Westport. So take care until next time. Bye.